So I'd like to show you how to get started using double point needles. When I cast on for double points, I always cast on to one needle, and then I transfer the stitches to two more needles. So I have 3 needles on my work and the 4th needle in my hand as the working needle, as the knitting needle. Now I've cast on 10 stitches. That doesn't divide into 3 evenly. It doesn't matter if you don't have the same number of stitches on each needle. So now I'm going to place my work down on the table, and I'm going to shape it into a triangle with the yarn coming from the top right hand needle here. So here I am, and you want to make sure that all of your cast on stitches are facing in. I like to leave it on the table like this, and now I'm going to knit onto this first double point right here with my empty double point. So I'm going to let the stitches or the needles balance on the table a little bit, enter the first stitch here, and then I'm going to pick up my working yarn and wrap that first needle like I'm knitting a stitch. Now I'm not going to try to hold on to any of the other needles. I'm simply going to concentrate on the 2 needles that are doing the work. When I get to the end of the first needle, I've got an empty needle in my left hand. Transfer it to the palm of the right. Turn your work. Now if it's helpful, you can place your work again down onto the table so you can make your triangle again. And then you can just pick up the needles and balance on the table a little bit. This can be helpful. So enter the first stitch on the next needle, wrap that around only that needle and pull it through. The second stitch, I like to give a little tug on the working yarn so that I don't have gaps between my double point needles. Whoop. There we go. Now I got to the end of that needle. I simply transfer the extra needle into my right palm. Turn the work. Again, you can place it down on the table if that's helpful for you to see how the work is being formed towards me. Pick up the last needle. We're going to knit from here to here. Wrap that needle, pull it through the second stitch, enter, and when you wrap, just a little tug. Now, when I get to the end of the row, I don't put any needles down. I simply place that empty needle into the right hand. If it's helpful, you can lay it again on the table so you can see your circle forming. It doesn't really matter where the tail is at this point. You can pull it to the front if you like. Now here we have a gap from the connection from the last double point to the first. So again, I'm just going to knit that first stitch, enter the second stitch, give a little tug when I wrap the second stitch. Don't strangle it. It doesn't have to be too tight, okay? So transfer. Notice how I don't put that needle down on the table when it's empty. I just transfer it to my right palm. And it's important to try to concentrate on the 2 needles that are doing the work. Notice how the other 2 needles, I just let them float around in the air. Transfer the needle, enter, and the second stitch, wrap with a firm wrap to the end of the row. Double points can be challenging, but they are extremely fun once you get the hang of it, and I encourage you to practice on just some practice yarn and practice needles. It's more difficult when you're trying to do double points for the first time on your actual project because it can make you feel a little bit nervous and, give you a little zing when you start your project. So practice it on some scrap yarn and some other needles until you kind of get the hang of it. Especially at the beginning, it can be a bit of a challenge. Okay, so starting a project with double point needles, I know you can do this if you practice it. It's so much fun. Okay.